just stop. Here's Ross, the host with today's dose of common sense.
Hey everybody, how you doing? Welcome back. Probably going to be a kind of a short show tonight. I'm a little pressed for time. I've had a lot going on. I keep saying that. I've had a lot going on, and it's true. So I haven't been able to sit down and do much podcasting lately, but I'm trying to get back on a schedule where I can do that. So I thought I would put something out kind of quickly tonight because Paulina Luna, representative from, I don't even know what state she's from, but she's one of the crazies, sort of, who was elected this last cycle. But she has put out a statement on X saying that she thinks AARO should be defunded. AARO, of course, being the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, which is the DoD's personal little UFO research group. And it's been kind of controversial because there's been a lot of people who have been involved in it. It's changed directors. And every time they put something out, basically they're debunking things. And so it upsets a lot of people in the UFO community because they're like, nothing that you've put out is real. You're saying it's all, normal things that happen. And that's because that's what their findings have been. There's always going to be a handful here and there that they don't have an actual answer for. So they have to put those out as being, unsolved. But there's always going to be those because you don't have enough information. It's what Mick West calls the LIZ, the low information zone. And so you have a grainy photograph of something in the sky on the horizon from 1947 or whatever it is. You don't have enough information to even try to debunk something like that. If you just have a blurry video of something that's probably 20 miles away, floating in the sky, or what at least looks like it's floating in the sky, you don't have enough information to be able to resolve it. You just don't. So there's always going to be some of those. But Paulina Luna, let's go over to the screen share so I can show you. For those of you who are just listening, I'll read it for you. And it says, clearly, the government has a spending problem, which it does. This is me. But yes, it does. And they aren't stopping it either. They're adding $2.5 trillion to the debt. Anyway, after reviewing our investigations through the Oversight Task Force, again, she put this task force together, this disclosure task force or declassification task force kind of thing. So that's what she does, and they've been having hearings now and then. So she continues, I am now convinced that AARO should be defunded. There's another organization doing a better job than AARO, and they're offering full transparency. And then she ends it with defund AARO. So it seems strange. It's kind of vague. Who is she talking about, this other group? Because AARO is the only official DoD group that's doing this. So she's going to wind up bringing up one of these lunatic groups like, the CE5 dorks from Stephen Greer and the Skywatchers dumbasses or whatever. It's going to have to be something like that because there isn't another group that's out there doing it. Now, you always had MUFON, which never really accomplished much that I'm aware of. But what are they going to do? Are they talking about a group of people who are making documentaries like James Fox or Jeremy Corbell or somebody in there? They have a group that they put together. Are they talking about the UAP Disclosure Fund group that a bunch of people just bailed on? So I don't know what's going on. Hopefully she'll add some clarification to that for people. But for now, it looks like she's going to lead the charge to get rid of AARO. I'm not really sure what AARO has been accomplishing anyway. People want them to look into a bunch of things that are just ridiculous. And whenever these things get leaked out, they get debunked because they're explainable. They are not anomalous things in reality. Everything from the Tic Tac. And yes, people say, oh, it went from 60,000 feet. Some people say 80,000 feet. Some people say it came out of space. And it went from that to sea level in a matter of seconds. But none of that's on any of the videos that anybody's showing. None of it's anywhere. All you have is somebody saying that that's what happened. So people are ignoring the fact that there are radar anomalies. There's, false hits on radar all the time. And I'm going to tell you how much it's out there. There's a video game called DCS World. It's a flight simulator for combat aircraft. And these are people who, that's their job. They create flight simulators. That's how they got started, like legitimate flight simulators. They apparently created the program, the flight sim program, to transition pilots from the original A10, the A10A, over to the A10C, which was an updated version, and there's some differences. So they created the flight simulator program for those pilots to transition them to the newer aircraft, the newer version. So that's what they did. They made flight simulators, and they make their own models in these flight sims for various aircraft that are supposedly as close as they can get to them without using any classified information or divulging any other, abilities of these aircraft. So they're not doing any like stealth aircraft or anything. It's pretty basic, common aircraft. So the radar, like in that aircraft, when you're using it, shows anomalies, and it's part of your job when you're flying it in the flight sim is to try and distinguish between, is that ground clutter that's coming up, or is that an actual target that I'm looking at out there at 150 miles or whatever. So it's such a common phenomenon that it's even built into the flight simulators that there's going to be radar anomalies and ground clutter and interference and all these other things that the pilot's going to have to weed through to make sure that the target they're looking at is real and that it's actually there. So when they say, oh, they only saw this on their instruments, or they only saw this, they didn't actually get eyes on it because it was in the middle of the night or whatever, people are ignoring the fact that those things, those instruments that they're using can have flaws in them. They can have glitches. They can do whatever. So to say something went from 80,000 feet down to sea level in a second, it didn't happen. So, and I don't think anybody actually thinks that happened. But, an aircraft flying at top speed from 60,000 feet can make it down to sea level in a matter of seconds. So if it was longer than he thought, like, it was 12 or 15 seconds, a high-speed airplane can actually do that. But anyway, it's just craziness, and people get upset about that. If AARO comes out and says, well, this is what we've discovered on this one case. So we looked at this case, and yeah, it was completely normal. It was this. It was, you were seeing the SpaceX thing, or you were seeing a satellite, or all that stuff. Because there's a lot of things that you can see under certain circumstances in the sky at night that you can't normally see. So you think it's something peculiar, but it's something that's there all the time, or something that's there frequently. It's just the atmospheric conditions don't normally allow you to be able to see it. But on that specific night, you could. Or the sun is just in the right spot, and you're, in the right spot, in the right hemisphere, that when the sun hits that satellite, you see this glint of light out in space that seems like it's moving. So the Starlink satellites are responsible for a lot of these things, because you'll see a whole line of them while they're being deployed and things like that. And there's so many things in space that are reflecting the sunlight that it's ridiculous. If you look up with night vision goggles up at the sky, you're going to see a lot of stuff moving that you can't see with the naked eye. And it's a little weird at first. So, I don't know, distant planes, helicopters, drones, there's all sorts of things going on, and people don't like it when you debunk it. They don't like it when it turns out to be something else. So these true believers, every time somebody debunks something, like AARO comes out and says, no, this was a completely normal thing, well, they're just going to automatically scream cover up And, they're shilling for for the aliens, I guess, or the military industrial complex and their secret, affiliation with the galactic, whatever it's called. There's a galactic organization. No, there's not. But anyway, people say there is. That's what they say. Kind of like Star Trek. So if AARO's not doing a good job, and that's what they get paid to do, is to look into these things, then who's going to do a more transparent and a better job? I mean, really, but I'm just afraid it's going to wind up being one of those stupid organizations like Skywatchers or something that think they can psychically connect with an alien spaceship, or the group of people who think they're angels and demons. That's just as dumb. It might be actually dumber. It might be dumber than thinking you can have a psychic connection with a machine that you can then control and bring down to earth at will. But anyway, we have to keep an eye on this and see what's happening. But for now, that's all we know. Hopefully in the next couple of days, she comes out and says something. I'm sure the people at AARO probably do not give a shit if they defund AARO and cancel the whole program, because I'm sure it has been more of a pain in their ass and more of a detriment to their career than anything they've ever experienced, being a part of that thing that nobody respected in the first place and nobody let them do their job in the first place. And every time they do their job, people just, just say that it's fake, just like the moon landings. But I can't imagine that they would be very upset about not having to do that anymore, and they can go back to doing their normal job. They can go back to doing real science stuff instead of tracking down grainy photographs and trying to figure out what this stupid, FLIR video from 30 years ago was, because it's virtually impossible to do that. So we have to wait and see what they do. But I wouldn't be surprised if AARO goes away. I wouldn't be surprised if AARO voluntarily goes away and they just leave the keeping track of anomalous things in the sky to Space Force or the Air Force or NORAD or somebody like that, just like they normally would. Oh, there's something here and we don't know what it is, so we need to, we need to investigate. So scramble some jets and go see what it is. So we may just go back to the old way of doing things. And it's going to sadden a lot of people, because people are like, oh, we need that X-Files vibe, somebody's out there actually trying to dig into it and figure out what it is. But it's all getting dismissed because most of the stuff is just garbage anyway. It's not UFOs. It's not aliens. It's not visitation from some other dimension. It's just something that you can't identify because it's too far away and you don't have good context. So I wouldn't be surprised if AARO does go away. But apparently, if Paulina Luna has her way, it will. And all we can do is stay tuned, and we'll try to see what happens and what this other organization that she claims is out there that's more transparent and doing a better job. Boy, let's wait and see what that is. But I'm not optimistic about that. But anyway, stay tuned, and I'll talk to you guys soon.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Really? Just Stop with your host, Ross. Make sure to like and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform so that you never miss a dose of some common sense.